Good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Sessions with Kat. This week, we're going to discuss self-sabotage and self-oppression. We always look to blame, someone else, someone outside of ourselves, or something outside of ourselves. What about your role in it? What about your role in your current situation or any situation? What about that part? And I kind of want to vaguely touch on it, I guess, because I don't want this video to be hella long, but we're gonna kind of point to the area on this board underneath. Now, before I get into that, this is the deck we're gonna go through, so I'm just gonna move this out the way. So I got this board here, and it's got the chakra symbols on it, okay, and it goes all the way up. And there's a reason I have it right here. Not necessarily because that's how it fits on my table, but it's right here for a reason. This is where self-sabotage and self-oppression hurts us the most. It's not these upper chakras, the upper three, right? It's usually right here at our heart center, and then the body chakras, right? The lower ones. So the root, sacral, sacral, however you pronounce it, solar plexus, and the heart area. And typically where self-sabotage occurs, it's when there's conflict here between these two. This is your energy center. This is, a fire center. This is the emotional. Where false ego and fear and all of that will typically reside is here. And once it takes place and starts doing shit, it'll get you in that comfort zone where you're shutting down or anything like that, and you end up blocking yourself from your own goals. It goes here. It puts this fire out. So this is a water-based chakra. This is a fire one. So what happens here, because typically this chakra is always balanced unless you're experiencing vertigo or anything like that, that tilts your whole center off balance, okay? This one's typically intact. So whenever you get work done, this one typically doesn't need work unless you're working on ancestral stuff like what I do. But typically this one doesn't need a lot of work. It's these two. And when you get work done, they should start down here and work their way up. These are the two main chakras where most people have struggles, right? And so when self-sabotage hits and it puts out this fire, you no longer can practice unconditional living. Okay, we won't call it love, unconditional living, okay? And unconditional love, but not really that part. It's more about the living part. And so then you find yourself kind of in that position where, why me? Why is this going on? What is, you're not asking what the problem is or what you can do to rectify the problem. It's the why. It's a lot of whys. Or I feel stuck. I feel detached or anything like that. A lot of those are emotional things, and they're gonna sit down in that sacral or sacral, however you pronounce it, in that water chakra. And when you're overwhelmed by that, it's gonna put out this fire. And then at that point, this right here, which is your middle ground between upper and lower, this is where your out of balance comes from. This is where you find that you don't know what your purpose is, or stuck, cloudy, depressed, any of that. It's not really gonna hit those upper chakras unless you absolutely do nothing about it, okay? If you don't do anything about it, those upper chakras will get affected, and you'll feel like, what am I supposed to be doing here? What is my part of my journey? When really it should be, oh, I know my purpose. I know that, the first obstacle in any situation is not always outside of you. It is typically inward. So you want to understand that if you ever feel stuck or ever feel out of place, go back to what caused that feeling to get a clear mindset on where it began, and then you can usually nurture it and rectify it. Now, if you feel as if that might be too much for you, okay, because some people don't have a lot of energy to tackle that self-sabotage, this is where you go to your energy worker, your healer, or a reader. Some people don't want energy work. Some people just want reading. And when you go to your reading, you tell them, listen, I feel stuck and it started somewhere around this point. Usually, whether it's a energy work or a reading, your spirit team will say, okay, this is what this is, and this is how she or he or however you, whatever pronoun you go by, will need to work to get past this, right? And then you have a plan of action, and then it's up to you to do that work, right? And I know a lot of people want it, they don't really want to touch some of the things that they have to do. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to experience that happiness flow all over again, you got to do some work. And with self-sabotage and self-oppression, nobody can do that work but you. And also considering you're the one inflicting it. Now, here's the other part that kind of throws it off. Self-sabotage can occur based on previous lifetimes, like, you know, lessons that needed to be learned or anything like that. Like if you didn't learn those lessons, that self-sabotage can carry over because it is at the soul level. And that is where you would go to someone who does soul retrievals or anything like that to kind of help you remove that roadblock. If you get candle work done or anything like that, like root work or voodoo or whatever, whatever you want to call it, I should say, you would do a road opener or a blockbuster. You can also do like a jinx remover, but in the sense that you're just removing that stuck energy that's stuck in maybe like this chakra or your lower, the water one, the sacral. You can do it that way as well. Okay, now self-sabotage, what does that do? That prevents you from moving forward in your healing journey. And I'm using the term healing loosely because everybody's journey is different, okay? But self-sabotage will say, why are you doing this? For what purpose? And if you're not in alignment with that higher self, now self-sabotage comes from that false ego part, which is a whole nother video that we're going to talk about later. If you're not in tune with your entire being, self-sabotage will set in and you'll get in your own way. You won't achieve anything, right? You'll fuck around and miss out on everything, right? Because you just keep allowing yourself to stay in that comfort zone or to stay in that old pattern. Self-oppression is what happens when you stay in that pattern and you just have this absolute refusal to do better or be better. You just figure, oh, that's just the way it is. No, ma'am, that is not the way it is. The way it should be is you should be walking in a healthy manner, right? Whether that be mental or physical or whatever path you're on. It should be, the roadblocks you experience should not cause you that much fear unless there's some trauma sitting down here, right? So you want to be mindful of what self-sabotage is for you, right? For me, it's me staying in a comfort zone and not doing what Spirit asked me to do because they haven't told me why, okay? I don't always need a why. And that's something I've had to learn over the years, is that you don't always need a why to do things. The other part of self-sabotage is, you know, you might say, oh, that don't feel right to me. And then you just don't do it. Well, did you check in with your team? Did you check in with your body? Did you check in with any part of your journey? Like any player in this journey? Because if you're just going based off the fact that you don't want to try something new, self-sabotage, that's part of that. Okay, that's another example. And what's going to come in if you're still holding on to stuck energy, you're still holding on to stuck emotions, and you're allowing yourself to just kind of like wallow in it. I don't like treading water. I don't like looking like a damn prune. I'm going to get the fuck out of it, dry off, and reevaluate. That's one way out of self-sabotage and self-oppression. But that's different for everybody, right? You want to do what's best for you and what's at the core of you, right? Because it's the soul energy. While you do have a soul star chakra that sits above your crown, your true soul energy sits behind the heart chakra, right? It's what keeps your heart beating. But if it's flooded, because this fire has been put out and not managing anything below it, what energy do you have to prevent you from moving forward, right? So this is kind of why energy healing, readings, prayer, meditation, any form of mindfulness is important, so that you don't have to experience self-sabotage on such a grand scale. Like everybody's going to experience self-sabotage at one point or another, but it's a matter of like how deep you allow yourself to go into that sabotage, right? And we're only talking about the part that we do. We're not talking about the outward part that people try to, you know, like what we get from other people or other energies, right? We're talking about what we do to prevent us from moving forward. So if you find yourself constantly like, what's a good example? Here one. Giving energy to a situation that's depleting you. But because you're so used to giving that energy, right? Oh, I guess this card would make sense. You're so used to giving that energy. You're so used to doing for people that you get so weighed down and you forget to do for yourself. That is self-sabotage. That is not the other person's fault. That is your fault for allowing it, because you're the one doing it, not them, right? You can say no. You can do a little bit and then go, I'm good, I did enough, right? You have to know your limitations and whether, well, not limitations, your boundaries. Because that's a big part of self-sabotage, is boundaries, right? And sometimes you need to have boundaries with yourself so that you don't, it's like a relationship. When you set boundaries with someone, like, no one will disrespect me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but are you disrespecting yourself? Have you considered that? Are you disrespecting yourself? Are you crossing your own boundaries? And with self-sabotage, with self-oppression, you have to have boundaries, not just with others, but in this case, with yourself, because that is what is most important, especially when you're going to be doing this kind of work. So for those of you who are training to do spiritual work or any kind of thing, like kind of under that like label, you want to make sure that the boundaries you set for people coming at you, you set for yourself. And you walk in those boundaries, right? It's not necessarily that anytime somebody crosses a boundary, that's you self-sabotaging. No, we drop the ball every now and again. No one's perfect, right? And I'm not expecting you to be. I'm expecting you to be perfect as you are, right? And what that entails is that even though someone may have crossed a boundary, including yourself, that doesn't mean you can't rectify the situation, right? You can always, and then this is the last card, you can always come back from self-sabotage, right? Unless it like totally consumes you, that's when you would reach more urgently for outward help, right? Whether you go to something like a therapist, a psychiatrist, or anything like that. What I will say with self-sabotage, right? Because I'm gonna move these cards just so I can give you guys a clearer picture. With self-sabotage, because it typically starts here, whenever you feel stuck, whenever you feel cloudy, whenever you feel ungrounded, and it's all feelings, so feelings reside here. This here is more of like, is your home stable? Is your, like, think a little bit more physical with this. This is more feelings, right? And typically we feel stuck, we feel ungrounded, we feel cloudy or anything like that. You have to gauge how overwhelming this is for you, right? And when you go to seek for help, like if you need help, make sure that you go in with this intention to figure this out. And please, for the love of fucking God, don't get a 15-minute reading thinking you're gonna figure this out in 15 minutes. No, you're probably gonna need something like a 30 or 45-minute reading with any reader to get to break through this part, so that this doesn't put out this, right? Self-sabotage will begin here because it's usually typically based on fear, which it hits your feelings. That's really where this sits. Now, this can flood either way, right? But it typically floods upward. And what the last thing you want to do is allow that flood to break and flood your heart. And then you just feel empty, you feel depressed or anything like that. So I hope that message was clear, because I don't know, it was clear as mud to me. So, but like, I understand it, if that makes sense. But if you're setting goals for the new season, right, for the coming season, for winter, because this is the perfect time to start setting boundaries and clearing out old habits, look at self-sabotage and how it affects you, like how you react to certain situations, if it's recurring, and like, you know, how you allow it to affect you, your family, or anything like that, because it's going to start with you. So with the coming season, look at that. That being said, Spirit just shut the hell up, so I guess I'm shutting the hell up on that situation. So that is self-sabotage and self-oppression. You just make sure it doesn't go past this point, because once it goes beyond this point, you're going to need something like a shaman to come in, because once it hits your upper chakras, it can do a lot more damage than versus if it hits the lower ones. You don't want it to go upward. That being said, make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment below if you liked any of the cards, or if you want to, you know, comment on self-sabotage itself. I also want to mention that I have all 5 spaces open in my Walking Home Barefoot program. I do a consultation before I just accept anybody into the program. So understand that. You won't just be accepted in my program, because it's not for everybody. And Spirit will let me know that when I talk to the person, because I don't want you to waste your money, right? I wouldn't want to take your money just because I want, you know, it's an energy exchange. So I want to make sure it's right. So that being said, have a good Wednesday. Stay hydrated. Make sure you eat something. And I wish you all the brightest of blessings.